Welcome to 27 Topics. Our guest today is a very special guest, Baron Hill, who's running for 9th District Congressman. Welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be here.
Tell us, you're running for office. The election is just days away.
True.
We're down to the finish line.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born and raised in Seymour. I still live there. When I was elected to Congress in 1998, we didn't move away. Indiana's our home. I've been married for 34 years to my wife, Betty. Best thing that ever happened to me. I have 3 daughters. One is getting married right after the election. My middle daughter is married, and I've got a daughter at Indiana University. And I grew up, after I graduated from college, I wanted to go to law school, but my father had lost his job at the Gerwin Shoe Company in Seymour and raised 8 kids on a shoemaker's salary, and I was the last of the 8. And he started an insurance business from scratch when he was 67 years of age. And as I said, I was going to go to law school after college graduation, but he asked me to help him with the insurance business, and I did. And thinking I'd only be there a couple years, I actually was in the insurance and real estate business for 15 years. So from there, I ran for the legislature and served in the legislature for 8 years. Served under Evan Bayh as the state student assistance director. And was with Merrill Lynch for 4 years when Lee Hamilton called me one day and asked me to run for Congress.
Very good. And then here again, you're back seeking the office.
Yeah, it was an honor and a privilege for me to serve in Congress for the 6 years that I had it. The good people of the 9th District decided I need a little bit of rest in the last election, and I want to let them know I'm all rested up and feeling eager to roll up my sleeves and serve them in Congress.
What do you think are let's just take 2 or 3 of the major issues facing the country today.
Well, I've been campaigning full-time for about 6 months now, and I've heard a lot of different issues raised with the people of the 9th District. I would say first and foremost is Iraq. People are frustrated with the war in Iraq. But to their credit, they don't want to just get up and move out. They want an honorable solution to all this. Now, what that honorable solution is, they're not sure what it is. And I think by a lot of people, it is complicated, even among people who are in Congress now. The other 2 issues I hear most about are the high cost of health care and our dependence upon foreign oil. And so those are the 3 issues that I've been addressing in this campaign.
If elected, how would you address some of these issues?
Well, as I said, Iraq is complicated. I think the President's message of staying the course is the wrong message to be sending to the people of Iraq. I don't believe that we should be withdrawing right away, but I do believe that we need to give pressure to the people in Iraq to ultimately take over their own country. And to say that we're just going to stay the course is basically tell them, don't worry, we're going to be there forever. And Jim Baker, who is a Republican, Lee Hamilton are leading up a commission. They've indicated that our policy in Iraq is probably wrong. But we need to use the leverage that we have, and that leverage is the presence of our troops. They want our troops there because they know that the country would break off into civil war probably if they left. We ought to use that leverage and tell the people in Iraq that by such and such a timetable they need to settle their political differences as it relates to the revenue sharing from oil. They need to step up to the plate and have their military take over, and their police need to be taken over. And we need to give those kind of timetables to the Iraqi people. Not a timetable for withdrawal, but a timetable for them to step up to the plate and take control of their own country.
And then you talked about oil independence.
Yeah, we have the technology in place now to become energy independent through biodiesel and ethanol. I think we ought to be giving tax credits to people who buy hybrid cars. Clean coal technology through coal sequestration, which is simply a fancy name for converting coal to gas and trapping the carbon so it's not emitted into the air so we can do it cleanly. Brazil has already made the transition to energy independence. If they can do it, we should too.
We should be able to then.
We can do it, and we should do it.
And then the other major issue you mentioned was the rising cost of health care.
Yeah, every time there's a plan put forth, the pharmaceutical companies and the HMOs and the insurance companies spend a whole lot of money to defeat it through television ads and lobbying Congress. They don't want to change. They like the present system because they're making a ton of money from the present system. But when you have 45 million Americans who don't have insurance and the rest of us are paying extreme premiums to keep health insurance, there's a problem with the way health care is delivered in this country and the way it's paid for. So I say, let's not do a plan yet. Let's just ask the question, is health care a right or a privilege? And we ought to debate that in Congress. I think it's obvious to me, at least, that health care should be a right for all Americans. And the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, and the HMOs are going to have a hard time telling parents of children that they don't have a right for their children to be insured. And so once we establish that it is a right in this country, then we're forced to do something about it. And that's the way I approach it.
Then other issues are abortion.
Yes. I want everybody to know that I am not for abortions. As a matter of fact, I have signed on to a plan that would reduce the number of abortions by 95% over the next 10 years. It seems to me that the pro-life people and the pro-choice people are screaming at one another, trying to prove who's right and who's wrong in this debate. We can all agree that there are too many abortions in this country, and let's have a plan to try to reduce those abortions. The 95-10 plan does just that. It offers counseling to pregnant women who are contemplating an abortion. It offers adoption services, a pregnancy hotline that they can call into. It's funded properly so that the kind of guidance that people who are contemplating an abortion can get is there for it. So I say quit screaming at one another, and let's try to find common solutions to this problem that we have in this country.
What about religious displays on government property?
Well, I am a man of deep religious faith. It's very personal to me, very important to me. But I would not impose that upon other people. They have to come to the same conclusions that I have come to. And when you get into the area of displaying it on public places, you create a problem, because all religions need to be equally represented there. And you can even go to the point where satanic displays could be displayed on public property if it came to that. So I just want to keep government out of that completely. Keep government assuring people that they have a right to the religious freedoms, but there should be a separation between church and state.
Then another issue that keeps cropping up is illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And the effects that it has on state and local forms of government, and such as schools. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on, or how would you handle immigration?
Well, first of all, my wife's a school teacher, and I think she's seen a lot of the children of the illegal immigrants in her classroom, because she tells me about it all the time. And that these children are having a really hard time getting educated because they don't know the language. What has to happen, and to clean up this problem, is we have to get tough on employers. That's the solution. Right now, there's not enough tough sanctions imposed upon employers, and employers are willing to take the risk of hiring illegal immigrants. So you got to get real tough on the employers. Fines, maybe even jail time. If employers know that there are consequences for hiring illegal immigrants, then they won't hire them. You can't blame these people for wanting to come over here, but if there's no job for them, then they won't come over here anymore.
Well, the thing of it is it's kind of difficult sometimes maybe for an employer to really get to the bottom of some of these. They look so real. Everything looks real.
Yeah, there's forgeries in terms of the paper that they have to prove that they're legal. So there ought to be issued a computer-coded card that proves that you have citizenship here. And that's easily enough created. We can do that with the technology.
The national debt.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the national debt, or we have a balanced budget this year and that year. Where are we on the national debt?
Well, we're getting worse and worse and worse. Under this administration, the debt has gone to $9 trillion. It started out at $5 trillion, and in 6 short years, it's almost doubled to $9 trillion, to the point where the national debt is, and the interest paid on that national debt is the second largest expenditure of our federal budget, second only to military spending. I mean, it's spiraling out of control. Congress had the opportunity to try to get things under control. When I was in Congress, we actually had surpluses. And we created those surpluses by having rules in place that disciplined Congress, pay-go rules and spending caps. Pay-go rules are simply, if we're going to spend more money, you got to figure out a way to pay for it. And that's what everybody in Du Bois and Spencer County do, who are listening here today. They have a budget, and they have certain rules in place. You can't spend more than you take in. And the federal government, unfortunately, is spending more than it takes in. The pay-go rules created surpluses for us in the year 2000. We can do that again. Unfortunately, Congress had the opportunity to reinstate pay-go rules that expired in the year 2002, and they wouldn't do it for some reason. And my opponent actually voted against those pay-go rules. Let's get those pay-go rules back in place again so we can get our budget under control.
Then we have a few more issues. One is jobs and wages?
Well, there has been an abundance of jobs that have been lost in the manufacturing sector. Southern Indiana is actually doing a little bit better. Cummins Engine Company announced that they were going to add 600 new jobs to their plant. Of course, we know that Honda is going to build a plant over in the eastern part of the district, so we're doing a little bit better here in Southern Indiana than other places. But Congress needs to create an environment that is conducive to having private enterprise create these jobs. One of these things that we can do, I think, is back to the budget deficit. I asked Alan Greenspan when I was on the Joint Economic Committee whether or not deficits matter. And he said for the long-term health of the economy, they definitely matter. So the best thing we can do is try to keep interest rates low so that businesses and free and enterprises can have the capital, cheap capital necessary to create the kind of jobs in this country.
Normally, interest rates are low, but they kind of adjust with inflation.
Yeah.
Are used to curb inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So if we try to keep interest low, how can we curb inflation? What's another way of curbing inflation?
Well, it's a balancing act. The Federal Reserve so far has done a pretty good job of finding that balance, raising rates when they thought there was maybe too much growth, and then stopping raising them when they felt like that the economy was stabilizing.
Mr. Hill, Baron Hill, I guess I should say. We appreciate you answering these questions for us. We now will allow you to have 2 minutes of closing comments.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here in Jasper recording this. I understand that this is broadcast to the people of Du Bois County and Spencer County. My message to this, Iraq is a problem. It is a real problem. There is a problem with healthcare costs. There's a problem with energy independence. There's a problem with the ethics scandals that are going on in Washington, D.C. And so my message to you folks is this. If you believe that everything that is being done now is satisfactory, that the country is moving in the right direction, that there does not need to be any change going on in Washington, D.C., that you want a member of Congress who's going to support President Bush over 96% of the time, then I would agree. My opponent is probably the person you ought to vote for. But if you want change and you think this country is moving in the wrong direction and you want somebody who's going to be an independent voice for Southern Indiana, then I'm Baron Hill and I'm offering my candidacy to you because you'll get that change if I can have your vote on Election Day. Thank you and God bless you.
If you or someone you know has a talent to showcase or an event to promote on 27 topics, please contact this station.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Just tell the public a little bit about.
Well, gee, my parents brought me home from the hospital. It's kind of a little known fact. They were living in a government housing project in New Albany off Beechwood Avenue, Wainwright Court. And I slept in one of the drawers of a chest of drawers. Dad took some risks, worked hard, did well in his life, and his attitude was, I've got mine, you go get yours. So when Keita and I brought our firstborn home from the hospital, we were renting the bottom of an old house south of Main Street on East 16th Street in New Albany. Moved to an apartment. I've pulled wrenches, had grease under my fingernails, driven a truck. As a kid, I mowed grass, bagged groceries, done a lot of things. It's amazing in this campaign. I've been characterized as a millionaire Mike, and I tell people, isn't it funny? If you buy a lottery ticket and you hit the lottery for $1 million, everybody thinks it's great. And if you answer all the questions on who wants to be a millionaire, everybody cheers. And if you spend 60 or 80 hours a week for 30 years and make several hundred people middle class in the process, somehow that's a bad thing. So it's I haven't always lived the way you see me living today. It's been a long road. Fortunately, I've had a good wife. We'll be married 39 years next month, and they say anything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So here we are.
You're the incumbent and are seeking the office again. Are there unfinished business there, or why are you seeking the office again?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unfinished business. A lot of it we got started. The first committee assignment I asked for was transportation and infrastructure, because it felt like Southern Indiana had maybe not been ignored, but certainly hadn't received the attention that it should in the last couple of decades. We have that brand new cable-stayed 4-lane bridge going to Kentucky down here at Rockport, and it funnels into an antiquated 2-lane highway. So we got federal funds directed to jumpstart 231 again. The projects run every place from another exit ramp on I-64 in Harrison County to the Bridges project in the Louisville metropolitan area, all the way to the far east with Highway 56 in Ohio County and US 50 in Dearborn County. Runway extensions, water projects, sewer projects. So about $47 million that I was able to direct into the 9th District for transportation. I'd like to see a lot of those brought to completion, or at least brought farther along. I'd like to see taxes simplified. I think the code is entirely too complicated, and it's not fair to all parties. And we need to keep the economy growing. Without a strong economy, we can't do any of this. We can't provide for the common defense. We can't educate our children. We can't even put food on the table. So it's important that we keep jobs and the economy growing, and that's what I intend to do if I'm reelected.
What are the 3 major issues facing our country that you see?
Well, it's pretty well down to 3 now. If you asked me that question a few weeks ago, I would have said that the thing I hear most often is border security, the availability and cost of health care insurance, the price of energy, and the war in Iraq. What are we going to do about it? Fortunately, the president signed a border security bill this week. That was one of the things that the president and I disagreed on, and the House disagreed with the Senate on. Our attitude was the first step needed to be border security, and that's been kind of checked off the to-do list. We added up to 700 miles of physical barrier, virtual barrier out in rural areas, that's sensors and so on, 1,500 more Border Patrol agents, and so that one's pretty well off the agenda. We're still working on, I think healthcare will probably be the number 1 issue when Congress reconvenes.
Okay, if elected, how would you address those issues?
Well, healthcare, there's not a silver bullet out here. There's not one thing that you can say this will fix healthcare. We have a lot of different problems. People that don't have health insurance go to hospitals, emergency rooms, and then they don't pay. The hospital, whether you're a for-profit or not-for-profit, a hospital can't afford to pay for the privilege. Money has to come from someplace. So they typically pass that on to people that have private insurance. To the extent the government itself is not paying the full cost of Medicare or Medicaid, then that's a cost that has to be recovered elsewhere, which also drives private costs up. Doctors and hospitals pay an enormous amount of money for medical liability insurance, which they pass on to the consumer. And the other problem we have is if individuals are free to buy health care, the people that typically buy are ones that need it currently, or ones that think they're going to need it. And those people that are healthy and don't think they need it often don't want to pay the high prices in order to get insured. Now, Massachusetts recently started a plan, and you hate to admit that Massachusetts might have done anything right, but they decided that health insurance was like car insurance. You have to have health insurance. And so they required everybody in Massachusetts to have health insurance. and said that they would spend their money, instead of reimbursing hospitals for unpaid costs and doing all the other things, they would use the money they were spending to subsidize the insurance premium for people that couldn't afford it on a slatting scale. As you make more money, they contribute less. One bill that we have is a bipartisan bill that would allow states to conduct those kinds of experiments, that you'd pick 4 to 6 states. The federal government would block grant, say, here's the money, now you figure it out. Does it need to be clinics? Because frankly, when you look at the United States, one size may not fit all. We're a rural district. I mean, we have a lot of areas that are very low population density, right. And what works in Indiana may not work in Massachusetts, or what works there may not work in Arizona or Montana. So one of the bills that's currently pending would be to make block grants from the federal government to states, and let the states come up with innovative solutions so that everybody has affordable health care insurance.
You know, some still say, you know, we should stay, and others say we have no business in Iraq. How do you feel about all those?
Well, there are two extremes. The critics fall in the camp that says we don't have enough troops there. We should have gone in with overwhelming force. We need to send more people, more equipment. We're not prosecuting this war enthusiastically enough, so let's send some more people there. Then you have the other extreme that says we ought to leave there tomorrow. Let's pack up and redeploy, or cut and run, whatever term you care to use. I think the proper course is in between those two extremes. To the people that say we need to send more American soldiers, I would say more American soldiers means more of our young men and women that are exposed in harm's way. It's more targets, if you will, for the insurgents. It also allows Iraq to become more dependent on us for their security. The point is to make them independent. The point is to make their security forces, their police and their military take over the proper role, which is for them to secure their own country. So I don't want more American involvement. I think it's a bad idea. To the people on the other extreme that say that we ought to leave tomorrow, or that we ought to set a deadline date and say here's the date that we will withdraw, I say that if we withdraw prematurely, we run the risk that Iraq will basically implode. It could go to an all-out civil war, become a terrorist training camp. I mean, it's we need to be very thoughtful about what we're doing here. Now, there's people who say, well, that means stay the course. We never stay the course. The goal remains the same. The goal is a stable Iraqi government with a competent, confident, capable military and police to provide for their own security. The tactics always change. The course is always being corrected. So to the extent we need to do that, then we certainly should. I look forward to the day that the only place the American flag flies is over the U.S. Embassy.
Gas prices are down from an all-time high, and they're fluctuating a little bit. And with them being low, you know, there's some concern about alternative fuels might have some effect on trying to establish more alternative fuels. What's your opinion?
Well, renewables are a good idea. We passed an energy bill in August of '05. Our goal wasn't a single E85 pump in the state of Indiana. That's 85% ethanol, made from corn primarily. There wasn't one E85 pump in Indiana when I took office. Our goal was to have 40 by year end, '06. We now have 42. A new biodiesel plant just opened up 20 miles east of Indianapolis. We're moving rapidly into renewable fuels. It's a win-win-win-win. It's a win for the farmers because it gives them an additional market for corn and soybeans. It's a win for national security. It's a win for our balance of payments, that we're not sending that money out of the country to the Middle East. We're keeping the money right here in the Midwest and in America. It's a win because it creates jobs at each one of these ethanol or biodiesel plants, good paying jobs. So it's good all the way around, and we need to encourage further use of renewable fuels.
We just have briefly, if you can just give us a brief answer on all of these. Abortion.
I'm pro-life, endorsed by the National Right to Life Alliance and Indiana Right to Life Alliance.
Religious displays on government property.
You know, there's a real paranoia in the courts today about religion in the public square. I mean, they'd like to run God out of the courtroom, the classroom, the boardroom, and most recently the Indiana State Legislature. I introduced a bill that would return free speech and the free exercise of religion and prayer to the floor of the Indiana legislature, in fact, to every state legislature.
The national debt.
National debt, the good news is the tax cuts have had the desired effect. The economy is growing at 2 times any other industrialized nation in the world. We had the biggest single tax day for federal tax collections, September 15th, 2006. $85.6 billion was paid in a single day to the federal government. The deficit will be 40% lower this year than it was projected as soon as 9 months ago. So we're on the path to a balanced budget.
Minimum wage.
I voted for the minimum wage. I don't think the federal minimum wage is the best thing to do because the difference in cost of living between St. Croix, Indiana, and New York City. I really believe that the minimum wage needs to be more a state and local issue than a federal issue, but I did vote for it.
You have 2 minutes as a closing comment to tell the voting public whatever you want to tell them.
Well, you know, most of you know by now that this is the first public office I've ever held. I didn't grow up holding public office. In fact, I don't come from a particularly political family. You know, I spent most of my adult life in business and felt like regulation was not often common sense. Taxes were very often too high. And, you know, I ran for Congress to try to make a difference for my kids and their kids. It's not really about me. I tell people I didn't run for Congress to be important. I ran for Congress to do some things that are important. I think it's important to keep this economy growing. I think it's important to keep manufacturing here in the United States. I don't think we can afford to become a nation of consumers. We have to continue making things. I believe a nation is made wealthier at the foundation by growing things on the ground, digging things out of the ground, or manufacturing. So I've tried to be the kind of congressman that I wanted when I was a constituent. One that will say what they mean what they say, and get up every day and try to do what they can to create an environment where jobs are created, not only jobs, but good jobs, family supporting jobs. And certainly do everything I can if I'm reelected to keep the economy growing and keep things going well here in the United States.
Welcome to Candidate Series on 27 WJTS. At this time, our guest is Eric Schaumburg of Jeffersonville, Indiana. He is a Libertarian Party, and he's running in the 9th District congressional race in the November 7th election. Welcome.
Glad to be here, Paul.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm an economics professor at Indiana University at New Albany. I've been teaching there. This is my 15th year. I've got 2 books on public policy. So I've been doing public policy for a long time, and real happy to have this as a platform to talk about issues that are really important to us. I've got a lovely wife, Tanya, of 11 years, and we've got 4 boys, young boys, so we're trying to raise a few good men. We'd like to tell people 2 by adoption, 2 the more conventional way.
Very good. And why are you seeking this office? I understand this is your first endeavor.
People have asked me about running for state office, and I said, well, actually, my expertise is in the federal arena. I've been teaching this stuff for 20 years, and so especially the economics of this, I know this stuff like the back of my hand. So that's where my passion is. That's where my greatest expertise is. So I'm particularly interested in Congress and running for Congress, and I don't think either of the other 2 candidates are speaking to these vital issues. So at minimum, this is a platform, and if things go well, I hope to win the race.
What are the 3 major issues, in your opinion, facing the country today?
If I had to pick 3, I'd say terrorism, education, and Social Security. In terms of what to do about each of those, terrorism, I think we're doing a good job. We've not been attacked again since 9/11. I think as we draw down with the war in Iraq, we will attract less attention from the people that hate us so much. They're still going to hate us anyway, but they'll have fewer excuses at least to do that. So I think more of the same with respect to the war on terrorism. With respect to education, it's much more of a state and local issue. I wish it were entirely a state and local issue, but the answer there is to move to competition and choice in the schools. Right now it's a government-run entity with a lot of monopoly power, and not surprisingly, the results are high cost. We spend over $10,000 per student, concerns about quality, and a lot of trouble over choice. You have schools bickering over what kind of prayer to have at graduation, how you're going to teach science, and all that's a problem because of the tyranny of the monopoly. Whenever you have a monopoly, a single decision is going to be made, and a lot of people aren't going to like it. If you've got a market-based situation, then people can have a lot of choices, and that would be preferable to the current arrangement. And the third is payroll taxes and Social Security, two of the big issues we're trying to emphasize. On Social Security, it's well documented and well understood that Social Security will go financially bankrupt with the retirement of the baby boomers. But beyond that, it's morally bankrupt because it only pays a 1.2% rate of return on average. I'm blessed to have a wonderful job, going to have a nice retirement, and the fact that the government has taken 15.3% of every dollar I make is irritating, but it's not going to change my life or my retirement. If you're the working poor and middle class, that is your retirement, and the government has forcibly taken your money and is giving it back to you at a 1% rate of return. So we've got to preserve Social Security for the elderly, the ones we've made the commitment to, but we also must find a way to get away from the current system and move to something else. The other thing is payroll taxes that finance Social Security and Medicare, 15.3% of every dollar earned, and again, it imposes a terrific burden on the working poor and the middle class. Income taxes get all the press, but income taxes aren't paid by lower middle and middle class people. For example, if you're $41,000 and you have a family of four, you don't pay anything in income taxes, but you lose over $6,000 to payroll taxes. So it's important to talk about income taxes, and I'd love to cut income taxes. I'm a libertarian, but we need to start with talking about cutting payroll taxes. Those cause a lot more damage to the working poor and the middle class.
Some of us, some say stay in Iraq, and others say we have no business there. What's your opinion?
It's interesting that all three candidates are saying the same thing. We need to do the best we can to set Iraq up for success and get out as soon as possible. And in thinking more about the issue and talking to some groups, I've realized that I think we mean different things, though. For example, Representative Sodrel means that he's pretty comfortable with the way things are going. For example, a report this week talks about troop levels may be the same in the year 2010. And so a phrase like stay the course is not a perfect way to describe it, but he's more interested in staying the course. And I think that's completely unacceptable. Troop levels the same today as 4 years from now is not acceptable. Baron Hill has taken a position that's somewhat away from that position, but I'm the candidate that wants our troops to come home the quickest. We need to put together immediate plans over the next few months and then start the troop withdrawal either late this year or early next year. Staying there with the status quo for a few more years is simply not acceptable.
Gas prices are down from an all-time high, and they've come down a little bit, but we don't know for how long that will be. And there are some efforts to developing alternative fuels. What is your take on that?
Well, I'm an economist, so the first thing I'm going to tell you is that it's mostly supply and demand. And so this was a big issue for Baron Hill. He was complaining about it. Interestingly, the policies he would advocate really wouldn't help the issue very much. But once the gas prices came down, he's moved on to other issues. But it's mostly supply and demand, and there's not much we can do about it. In terms of the long term, we're interested in new technologies. And then the question is, do you go with the government or do you let the market take care of it? My position is that that taxpayer dollars should never go to corporations to subsidize anything. And take something like energy. What greater incentive is there in what other market to develop the next great thing in energy, whether it's extraction or a hybrid car, whatever it is? There are tremendous financial incentives there that the market already provides. Why do we want the government to take taxpayer money and then give it to corporations and try and pick the winners of this competition. The market provides plenty of incentives. We shouldn't take a dime from taxpayers. Let the market take care of it.
On the rising cost of health care and escalating drug costs, that's becoming a hardship on many to where they can no longer afford. And there are businesses who, have employees who also can't afford to have taxes or insurance for their employees. You have an opinion on that?
Yeah, it takes longer than we have, though, so I would encourage people to go to the website at ericforcongress.com. It's got a full description not only of what I would say about health care, but other policies. In a nutshell, the problem is, ironically, that we have too much insurance. Insurance typically covers rare, catastrophic events. Think about auto insurance or fire insurance. But imagine that auto insurance were like health insurance, right? Health insurance covers everything from allergy shots to cancer. Imagine if auto insurance covered door dings and oil changes. What would happen to the cost of an oil change if it were covered at 80 to 95%? What would happen to the number of door dings fixed and the amount of paperwork generated if all door dings were covered at 80 to 95%? The problem is we have too much health insurance, ironically, and therefore it's very expensive and it serves to drive up costs. The further explanation for that is on the website.
And what is the website?
ericforcongress.com.
Abortion.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Abortion.
Question mark.
I am adamantly pro-life, and looking at 21st century science, what it tells us about biological life, given religious views about the value of life and the sanctity of life, I am adamantly pro-life. A couple things of interest here. First of all, I would say that our problems in this arena are not primarily political. There are some political solutions that I would advocate, restrictions on, for example, parental notification, partial birth abortion. Those are fine, but this is largely a cultural and social problem, and so our ultimate solutions really are there. One other policy difference of note, I would not vote for a bill like H.R. 3010, which provided funding under Title X for family planning services to Planned Parenthood. So H.R. 3010 gave taxpayer money to Planned Parenthood at the tune of $50 to $60 million, and I find that to be unacceptable as well.
Religious displays on government property.
That should be up to the local and state governments that want to do that. Should not be a matter of court activism. The people should be allowed to do that. Again, it's kind of like the school issue in that you've either got a tyranny of the majority or you've got a tyranny of the minority. You've got an issue where there's going to be one decision and someone's not going to like it. In a case like that, something innocuous like a religious display, then local and state governments and the people should be allowed to decide that.
The concern of the influx of illegals entering this country and placing a burden on state and local forms of government, including schools.
If one is serious about the problem of illegal immigration, you have to embrace both strategies available. First strategy is securing the border, whether through a wall or a fence or some combination of technology. The second strategy, though, is penalizing employers who hire illegals, and that's arguably the most important issue. Why are they coming here? They've got a horrible economy in Mexico. They passionately want to come here to make a better life for themselves, and you've got employers who are happy to hire them. That's the reason. That's the number one thing. And so if you want a coherent approach to illegal immigration, you've got to go after the border, and you've got to penalize employers who hire them. In contrast, Representative Sodrel only wants to do border security. He is firmly on the record not wanting to penalize businesses. He sent me some scary flyers with barbed wire fences on it, but although he has the strongest reputation on this issue, ironically, he is the weakest on this topic.
The national debt seems to be creeping up again.
One of the reasons I'm running also is as the only fiscal conservative in this race, and again, for more documentation on that, I would send you to the website, ericforcongress.com, to lay out the case for that. But the fact is I'm the only fiscal conservative in this race. When the Republicans are spending money like drunken sailors and then courageously financing it with debt, who's left to man the books in Washington? We've increased spending, domestic, discretionary, and defense spending at a rate at least as high as any president since LBJ. The rate of spending is incredible, the additional debt and the deficits are incredible, and that's got to stop.
A real quick note on the minimum wage.
Minimum wage is a not very good policy. Again, the website's got a ton of detail on that. The first thing is that the minimum wage increases the price of the people you're trying to hire. It makes it more difficult for them to hire. A much better issue is back to the payroll taxes. Why are we taking any money from the working poor? If you're at the poverty line with a family of four, you earn about $20,000, and again, you don't pay anything in income taxes, but you lose over $3,000 in payroll taxes. If you want to help the working poor, the best way to do it is quit taking money out of their pocket instead of monkeying around with the minimum wage and giving businesses an incentive not to hire them. So there's many better answers there than the minimum wage.
Okay, you have roughly a minute or so to give us your closing comments.
I think that the minimum wage is a nice segue that in many cases my opponents offer you secondary issues, shiny objects to try and distract you like the minimum wage, like gas prices, like flag burning, a lot of he said ads that are very irritating, and a lot of just plain silly stuff. You've got to choose. Are you going to choose a candidate who's going to talk about primary issues, who is willing and able and has a passion to deal with the most important issues, or are you going to settle and waste your vote on two candidates who simply aren't interested or aren't able to go there? The ads have been ridiculous. The flyers are annoying. From Sodrel, we've learned that Hill is a Washington lobbyist who doesn't have Hoosier values. One of these days I hope to learn exactly what Hoosier values are, but I know that Hill apparently doesn't have them. And then we've got Hill, who's trying to exploit the Foley situation, and he's got a nice picture of Sodrel smoking cigarettes. I'm just not real clear on what good that is. Now that Hill has covered sex and drugs, I'm hoping he'll get to rock and roll next. The issues just are not that impressive. You've got an economist or you've got two politicians, and of course I hope you choose the economist on November 7th. For more information about the campaign, go to ericforcongress.com. Don't waste your vote this time. Vote Schaumburg for Congress on November 7th.
If you or someone you know has a talent to showcase or an event to promote on 27 topics, please contact this station.
Welcome to the Candidate Series on WJTS. My name is Paul Knies, the host of the program, and our guest at this time is Donald W. Mantooth. He is running for 9th District, Congressional District. Welcome.
Glad to be here, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Well, we're glad to have you, and tell you what, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I was born quite a while ago over in Washington County. Still live there. That's the county I was raised up in till World War II came along. And then I went to service, volunteered for the U.S. Navy, and served in the Southwest Pacific. Came back, went in, after discharge, I moved to Indianapolis, where I got involved in civil defense. I became a policeman in Indianapolis. Later I went into business for myself as a private investigator for a few years, and I was captain of the Civil Air Patrol, so I've been active in many things. And in 1984, I did run for governor of the state in the Democratic primary. And so that's basically my frontline political experience. However, I did publish a newspaper since 1964 that researched and is about politics, economics, and legislation. I did that for many years. It went national and then international. And in all the time that we were publishing, we were never once accused of publishing something that wasn't true, nor were we sued. So I became concerned at what's going on in the country. I believe in the great ideals that the country was founded on, government by the consent of the governed, and individual liberties, private enterprise, and all those things that the country now has basically abandoned. In this election, it's the worst situation I've seen in an election. So I had to get involved. I tried to get involved in the primary, but I was injured, and I couldn't get into the primary election where I'd have to declare a party. So I'm now running as a write-in candidate, as an independent, and not connected with any party. People wants to vote for me has to write in my name on the write-in line or type in whatever is required in your voting district. So we'll just see what happens.
Very good. Why are you seeking this office? You kind of touched on it briefly a little bit ago.
Because I see a great failure of our Congress. It doesn't represent the interests of the people anymore. It has run this country into horrendous debt that my grandchildren are going to have to suffer as they pay for it. And it has become a warlike situation in their policies. Their foreign policy has turned so many of the nations of the world against us. And I just felt led to get involved and present my views to the voters of this district. If they want to don't stay home, but want to vote a protest vote, now's the time to do that.
And again, we go from one to the other, the three major issues that you see facing our country?
The people has said that the Iraq war is the number one issue. And I think the number two issue is the immigration mess, where an illegal foreign invasion has taken place and has seized the resources that rightly belong to the citizens of this country. And the third, possibly, is sacrificing jobs for globalization. And that's a free trade agreements. Every time they pass a free trade agreement, jobs leave this country. And we're bound by the free trade agreements override our laws, overrides our courts. And even now, this is leading into turning the NAFTA agreement into a North American Union modeled after the European Union. And your politicians, I've never heard any of them mention this. They're doing it in secret in the executive branch through administrative work rather than presenting it to Congress or getting the consent of the people. So that has to be, that's my goal, is to inform people what's coming, and it's on the fast track. It's proceeding very well. It's being taught in universities. The students in universities are being taught how to enter and promote this system.
Okay, if elected, now you've already touched on some of these, how would you address each of these issues? And you talked about the immigration a little bit here in this thing. So how would you address some of these issues?
Well, of course, one congressman to have a pretty hard time directing what needs to be done in the Iraq war. I know what I think needs to be done is for them to break Iraq into three states and let them be individual sovereign nations if that's what they want. Let the people over there have what they want. Not what the problem is we're trying to force them into accepting unified government when that's causing all the friction. The people themselves don't want that. So we either develop a win policy or we get out. And if we get out too quick, it can be a very bloody thing for the people that we've gotten into this situation in Iraq.
Gas prices were coming down. Yesterday they inched up in our area a little bit. And we don't know how the gas prices are going to affect us in the future here, but there is development of alternative fuels, biodiesel, alcohol, hydrogen, and other renewable resources. Are you in favor of these resources being developed?
I'm excited about it. I see a lot of this growing, particularly in northern Indiana. I think southern Indiana needs to get on setting up fuel producing operations. Anything that can, and it needs to be the private enterprise rather than government controlled, but allow people to find an alternative, and it can be done. We must end dependence on foreign oil because it's hurting this country just being dependent on the foreign nations for a very vital resource.
Other issues we have is the rising cost of health care and escalating drug costs.
Again, we need to get the government out of it, turn it over more to the private enterprise, which we're seeing a lot of exciting things happening. It's providing low-cost drugs and medicines, and what we need, we don't need socialized medicine, we don't need price controls. What we need is for the government maybe to do some of the planning, but the private sector doing the delivery.
Okay, next, abortion.
Okay, that's an easy one because I've been in a battle against abortion since the beginning, and I've been asked before about Roe versus Wade, and I would do everything I could to try to overturn that in the Congress. And I see South Dakota is getting into a situation where we might be able to test this again and bring it before the Supreme Court and test it.
How do you feel about religious displays on government property?
I'm in favor of religious displays anywhere as long as they don't overdo it and cause riots and get involved to the point where it disrupts government itself or so forth. But I believe it's the right of all people to clearly state their religious beliefs, including hanging the Ten Commandments on the courthouse wall. And that should be free to all religions, however, on an equal basis. And common sense should direct how to limit that so that it doesn't be obnoxious to anyone else.
Okay, the national debt.
It's a terrible thing, and it's much worse than what they're admitting. I've got reports from the Comptroller General of the United States, reports from the Internal Revenue Service that was done for the Internal Revenue Service that shows that our debt is much more than they're admitting, and so that is one of the big problems. It's hurting this country.
Minimum wage. You for a minimum wage?
I am for a minimum wage, yes.
Okay, I'll tell you what, we have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Can you have these 2 minutes to use as you wish?
Okay, I'd just like to tell the people out there that They should check my website for further information on the positions that I have. And my website is www.usa4donmantooth.com. And you can contact me through that, or I'm in the Salem phone book. I'll be glad to answer anyone's questions anytime. And we simply have to change Congress, and the only way we can do that is change the people we send up there. And it's up to you. If you don't want to do that, it's going to continue the same way it's always been.
You have any other comments?
No, I just believe that this country's in probably the worst situation it's ever been in. Like I say, they're trying to throw away this country and form a new country of Mexico, Canada, and the United States in the North American Union. You can put North American Union in the search bar of your computer and you'll get the whole story. It's nothing secret, but it's kept secret by the press and the other candidates. We are going to be a new country.
Donald Mantooth, candidate for 9th Congressional District in the November the 7th election, and we urge everyone to be sure to go to the polls and vote on Tuesday, November the 7th. Thank you, Donald Mantooth, for being our guest.
Thank you very much.